And action. Level Up is a action-adventure, sci-fi, fantasy, romantic comedy that is ultimately about one student's attempt to college. The initial reason I wrote Level Up was for my screenwriting class. I wanted to find a way to include zombies, lasers, martial arts, and all this crazy stuff. And I was able to, I at least think, in my opinion, somewhat successfully integrate all those things into what I think is a pretty interesting narrative.
I myself play a lot of video games, so the premise of it being based in like a video game world switching between college and video games was a really cool idea to me. So that drew me in. I read the character sheet. I was like, oh hey, I'm nerdy and awkward too. I can totally relate.
Well, I mean, at first it was the prospect of financial gain, but then once I realized it was a volunteer thing, I was like, oh, well, you know, I think I'll just volunteer for this movie because it sounds like fun.
It was an acting gig, and Luke is a friend of mine. I was sitting outside my work, and he just happened to walk up. I had seen the flyers, and do you need me for anything? And he said, well, I have this, so why don't you look at it?
I was interested in auditioning for Level Up because it is Luke's thesis project, and so I wanted to support him as a friend, and it was something that I wasn't used to doing, so I decided to challenge myself a little bit.
I've always been really interested in theater, and when I auditioned for a show here on campus and didn't get cast, I ended up seeing the posters for auditions and was really interested in it, so I ended up going out, and here I am.
I think we got some pretty cool locations to film at. It takes place in a college. We are at a college, so filming in a realistic setting was no problem. I had originally really wanted to shoot the Cyber Realm scenes in the Moon Township Mills parking lot, but everybody I tried to email about getting the rights to film there, because you can't just go down there with 20 people and fake guns and not expect to get arrested. Everybody I emailed about getting permission to shoot there, including the local police, ignored me. So I was like, okay, we'll work with something else. Luckily, where I live in Cranberry, there's a couple of really nice parks in walking distance from my house. I'm particularly proud of the park that we filmed the opening scene in because it had that cool pond and the cool forest, and I did some cool digital alterations to make it look more Skyrim-esque. Go back, come just a little bit further. I had way more people than I expected come and audition, so I actually had a pretty nice pool of people to choose from. It was kind of a blessing that SAXMAN walked in. I needed somebody who was, you know, awkward and kind of uncanny.
He loves his video games, and he's really into the idea of falling in love. That's where a lot of his motivation in the movie comes from.
He's like so exactly that character where he's just like this little, like, I don't want to call him a loser. He's not like a loser, but like, you just want to root for him. He's an underdog, I guess, in real life and in this. So just him being sometimes pathetic in the way that he read things really like helped my bullying of him.
I hope the character of Jack resonates with a lot of people because I feel like it's something that everybody goes through to some regard when you enter a new atmosphere, a new environment with people that you don't know. Through the movie you see him come in, he's not sure of himself, he doesn't know if he's going to make friends or if he's going to have a good time or if this is even a worthwhile thing to do. Then, you know, he meets the gaming club and he's like, oh, this is everything I could have hoped for. Then he meets Rachel and he thinks, well, this is great. I'm in this new place, I'm learning, I have new friends, now I'm gonna get a girlfriend and everything's gonna be great. But then, you know, that last aspect doesn't work out and he just crumbles and assumes that nothing is gonna work out and it takes.
He realizes that, like, even though it didn't work out with Rachel, like, his life will go on and he just grows more as a person. He's now experienced legitimate rejection, and that will help him in the future and move on.
There was one character, Danny, who was like the human embodiment of a mouse, like super shy, super quiet, as kind of like a Foley to Jack's character. I'd met Matt briefly at auditions for Avenue Q, and he is probably the quietest person I've ever met, and when he came in to audition for my movie, it's like, that's Danny, perfect. I don't care about anybody else. This role was written for him.
Danny is like Jack's, I wouldn't say best friend, but they do become close friends. You know, they're both loners and outsiders, and they come together in the gaming club, and it strengthens their bond a little bit, but it doesn't, I don't think it's explored that much in the movie.
What's wrong, Jack? Seem distracted.
Well, life kind of sucks.
Aaron is kind of like a character who's wise beyond his years a little bit. I mean, he doesn't try to be all the time. It's just kind of who he is.
That character needed to be the mentor figure, and it worked out really well in my favor to have him. I thought he and SAXMAN worked really well together. SAXMAN being the bumbling, clumsy oaf. That's more his character, and Krell being the smoother. Everything that Jack wanted to be.
Any scene that SAXMAN has any type of trouble at all, it's just funny. Not like, I love SAXMAN, but like he's fun to watch just be awkward in general. Kind of brings out how each character actually is individually and like the contrast, but also shows how they actually are friends.
The role for Rachel was another tougher one to cast for because I had a bunch of pretty talented people read for it, and it was kind of up in the air between a couple of people, and it just ended up being, I think I liked Hannah's performance just a little bit more. I think she suited the characters a little bit better. I didn't really know her up to this point. She was a freshman.
When I was auditioning, I was kind of expecting just sort of like a background ensemble type part, and to get cast in a role this big, it was completely unexpected, but I'm so thankful for it. Rachel is a people person. She loves to laugh and just talk with anybody and just come off as that type of person rather than sort of cold and by herself. And she sometimes comes off as a little flirty, which don't know if she necessarily tries to. I think it's just her personality.
One of my main challenges was towards like the end of the movie. I have to like have this moment of like clarity and understanding with Rachel, and like I don't know why I had such difficulty with this, but I had such trouble having a sincere hug. Like I just made it so awkward every time. Ask anyone who was there. I was all aboard the struggle bus for that hug.
His response was, I can't hug anybody on command. We probably went through it like 30 times just with him because he stands like a board and could not hug at all. He's just like, okay.
Hey nerds, what's up?
The character of Liz was the only one that I had to reach out to somebody who didn't come to auditions. I ended up asking Rachel Carey to play the role because I thought she'd be able to fit what I was looking for. The other people who read for that character in the auditions, they were good, obviously, but didn't quite bring the level of sass that I think I wanted for that character.
She acts like she doesn't care, but she actually really does.
The other problem was, on my audition sheets, I made sure to specify to ask the characters they were comfortable portraying a relationship of somebody with the same sex. And I think that made it sound like it would be way more vulgar than the movie actually was. It just so happened that these two characters were dating. There's no sex scenes, there's no like heavy PDA or anything like that.
They're kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, where Liz is kind of like this emo goth kind of character with a really like flat sense of humor. Amanda is like bright and peppy and happy and really optimistic.
So it was a little different for me, but she's a very positive person. So that was something that I had to, think about and be more bubbly.
I wanted to make it not showy. Like I didn't want to be like, oh my god, they're a lesbian couple. I just wanted it to be like seamless, like they're just a couple, it's chill, it's whatever.
There's this one scene where Liz and Jack and Amanda are in the apartment, and it's when Amanda meets Jack for the first time. And we're supposed to have this very awkward moment together. JONATHON SAXMAN is just the funniest kid. And so playing off of him and Rachel while having Luke there, everything was just this kind of very weird atmosphere, but I think it all worked together very well.
And then I tried to figure out like what her motivation was, like why she was so invested in Jack. And I think it was because my character's pretty indecisive about her future, and she sees that in Jack and she wants to kind of help herself through helping him. I like the scene where me and Jack are sitting on a hill. We kind of isolated ourselves from the group and kind of like let ourselves just sulk in our own misery.
You're an idiot if you think that group of psychopaths doesn't completely love you.
We have this like little confrontation scene on the hill where we're like, let's just go back, let's fix everything, let's face our futures head on, and I really like that scene.
Good afternoon, class.
Let's talk about Clay. For anybody who wants to cast Clay in a movie, don't bother writing for him, just let him go.
Basically, it was to be the most apathetic, least caring professor I could imagine. I mean, the real deal with McGruffin is that he just does not care at all. Just rambling on, just does not want to be there. And just to portray the most nonsensical, outbursts of anger for absolutely no reason was one of my main goals. Luke just sort of gave me free rein to pretty much do whatever I wanted, which was nice. There was very loose outlines in the script as far as where Professor was supposed to go, so I basically just took it and ran with it. Luke just started recording and just let me completely improv for about 15 minutes at a time.
Every single one of the classroom scenes, I feel like, was everybody's just favorite to sit down and watch Clay just go for 2 minutes straight. I just had to react to that, so that was fun.
I have a lot of trouble not laughing. If something's even a little bit funny, I will crack up. In the movie, when Clay is being his professor, improving like the funniest, I would start laughing, and then so I'd go like that to hide it. I could not keep a straight face.
I didn't really interact much with the other characters. The lead characters, John and Hannah's characters, basically intimidated them for no reason, of course, throughout.
There's a part where Rob and Rachel are sitting eating lunch together, and the professor just comes out of nowhere and steals their sandwich and just stares them down. And it made me laugh the entire time. I could never keep a straight face.
We ended up shooting the classroom scenes in a big lecture hall. I wanted to shoot it in a smaller classroom, but I had emailed campus security about having the door unlocked the day that we were going to shoot, and then we got there and it was locked because they also ignored me. Fortunately, Hopwood Hall was open, so we shot there. The only issue with that was it seats like 100 people, and we had maybe 7 people as classroom students. So it looked pretty sparse, but again, movie magic is a skill that I'm kind of good at. I mean, like anything else, it's a skill that I got fairly good at with years of practice. I really got into the special effects game in high school because my high school was cooler than your high school and offered an entire class just on After Effects and Photoshop and getting good at that stuff. So that's what really gave me the foundation, and I've just been playing with it ever since, you know, looking up tutorials online, trying to figure out how to do other special effects. I feel like it's going to be interesting for this movie. I get better at it every video I make. It's the most time-consuming part of making this movie. Just that first 5-minute sequence with the dragon and stuff took like 2 weeks working on that.
Alex and Alex, what's the deal? Are they like a thing?
Alex and Alex are like the comedic relief of the whole group. Like, they kind of stay by themselves even though they're in the club. Like, you never really see us without each other.
But not too over the top where it just gets crazy and nonsensical, but I think just portray them just as accurately and genuinely as one could possibly do to characters such as the two of us, so.
I think the only feedback we really got was like laughter.
Yeah.
Just like the genuine like breaking character that people did when they were around us was really great.
Also helped because we broke a lot of the characters' insecurities, or if they were stressed about filming the scene. So, and hearing the positive reaction we got from doing that, even though we technically maybe weren't supposed to, it was good.
Let's call this first official meeting of the Gamer Club to order.
Gothis. Oh, Gothis. Gothis is incredibly interesting to work with because he's very quiet and soft-spoken off camera, but once you say action, he's like very loud, eccentric, very willing to just throw himself on the ground.
Charismatic leader. Very, very excitable, tries to get a positive outlook on everything. And Paul is the jerk who tries to bring my character Brian down.
Go ahead, Boots Brykowski, I was busy.
I could see some of myself on here, but all of these times in life where it's like you want to have that snarky comeback, or you just want to be like, you just want to say that one thing to somebody where you really shouldn't say it, but you do anyways. That's how I thought of Paul. I was like, you know what? This is a guy where just be that unredeemable, fun character who you can just have a laugh at, and it's not going to be any skin off his back. He's not going to care. I had trouble like taking my character seriously sometimes because most of the time, well, he's not serious. My lines weren't too hard to deliver. I didn't have the vast monologues like he did and the charismatic speeches. I just had a couple little quippies.
But it is not this day.
That's actually when I auditioned, kind of what drew me to the part was that monologue there. The not this day speech. The very important Cyber Realm scenes at the very end of shooting. I was doing another show at that time. We had been in Tech Week. I was worn out and I get up that Saturday morning to film and I don't have a voice. Got it out, it worked. It might sound a little scratchy, but scenes that we've seen, like me exploding, were all done like that, and they sound fine.
He just throws himself into the air. Like, he got some pretty serious hang time. Just the sound that he made as he exploded. I really appreciated the effort of my ensemble, the X team, as I lovingly took to calling them, because I know from personal experience it sometimes sucks to be the nameless character in the ensemble who don't get to have any lines, and you're kind of just stuck in the background. The director doesn't quite always acknowledge you, and I tried really hard to make sure that the ensemble felt included, because this movie lives and dies on the ensemble. Because, I mean, there's a zombie scene, you have a zombie horde that's not particularly intimidating with 2 people in it. So to have these people, you know, give their support and dedication to a project where they don't get to be the lead roles is really great. So he'll run, give him like a second.
In acting, normally I'm on stage, so there's a camera, you have to ignore the camera.
It's very in your face. I mean, and you have to continuously do different shots.
If you messed up, you could do another take, whereas on stage, you have to like do it right then.
I guess what's different about this movie is that like the vibe was good. Like everyone around us was good, was like super positive, good to work with. Nobody was really super stressed out, and neither was Luke, which I think made it really good for us to give our best uninhibited performances.
Because usually here people are stressed and like not fun to be around most of the time, but it was always exciting and fun to be around everyone filming on this. So yeah, that was a major difference.
It's similar in that relationship that you have with the other cast members, but it's weird because you don't get to see them all the time, and so you don't know exactly where you are in the script, especially when you have all these different filming days and so much depends on the weather or who can be there. So that was strange because it's not like you go to the one rehearsal space and that's it, you're done. You have to go to all these different locations with all these different people.
With the film, it's more intimate, and this film particularly, like I said, Luke gave me a lot of leeway, and I really did get to make up 90% of my lines that won't end up in the final cut, but they were a lot of fun anyway.
I thought it was a lot of fun. I had a long ways to travel while filming, but I didn't really mind because it was fun, and I enjoyed getting to know different people, seeing a different campus, and it was a whole bag of new experiences, and you know, I'd do it again.
Luke, you can just through the script kind of read Luke in it. After knowing Luke a couple of years, you kind of like get to know his sense of humor, how much of him was infused in the script. So just knowing him in that sense changed how I would go about my character.
I've had an interesting experience making this movie. It's cool because this is probably, I'm not going to say it's the coolest thing I'll ever do, because I certainly hope not, but it's definitely the most freedom I've had artistically to make exactly what I want, because I don't have producers, I don't have anybody trying to take the story in different directions. It is, for better or for worse, 100% my production. And that's something that doesn't really happen in the real world, so I'm really excited that I've had this opportunity to make a movie that is mine.